Jai Maa Kamakhya, Jai Maa Jai Bhairava. So the Navaratris are going on, and there are many people who have mailed with respect to various sadhanas that are being done, especially with the establishment of the Ghata. So the reason we put up the Ghatasthapana vidhi is primarily because one of the most key aspects of Hindu worship, especially whether it's Devi Puja or koi bhi, any other worship, involves the establishment of the Ghata or the Kalasha. The Kalasha represents the human body. As you keep doing the sadhana and do not move the Kalasha more or less, I mean, by mistake, if it gets moved, don't panic. You can always continue again uh, in the process. But as you get more accustomed to using the ghata or establishing a simple ghata, there are many vidhans. We have in our video, in the last video, and the team mentioned the specific type of ghatasthapana. As you keep becoming more familiar with keeping a ghata and using the kalash or the ghata for puja, you will see that it enhances the quality of the meditation and the resonance of the mantras inside you. So the Kalasha is supposed to be representative of the body in which all the mantras, all the deities are coming into existence. And through a resonance, as you keep doing puja near the Ghata, it is going to cause an impact inside you, internally cause an impact inside you. So therefore, it is a very important procedure to know in the way in which Devi Upasana, especially Devi Upasana, but also any other Upasana can be done. Today, however, I will speak to you not about the Ghatasthapana, but on the topic of Maa Kali. This is because there was some thoughts earlier too, which I wanted to share, but because of my hectic schedule and various other things, I did not get time to make this video. So among the Mahavidyas, and I've spoken about this before as well, among the Mahavidyas, the first is Kali. Kali is, Maa Kali is basically like that primordial force which has no beginning, no end. We humans get to know about Kali or the name of Kali specifically from the Shastras, and the Rishi of Mahakali, Rishi of this Vidya is Mahakal himself. He tells us that there is a process and there is a Devi, there is a Shakti, there is a force so ancient, so primordial, so ferocious, and the manner in which a person can approach them, the mantra, nyasa, paddhati, etc. In a way, we can look at Mahakala as the first rishi who actually he's like a being who first realized Kali, and in his compassion for the world, he gave to us how to worship Kali. Now, there are one of the oldest references to Maa Kali perhaps comes to us from the Markandeya Purana in the Durga Saptashati, where we see the emergence of Chamunda as a form of Kali that emerges from the body of Parvati and destroys asuras like Raktavija, whose Raktavija is the kind of an asuric force which the moment you try to destroy it, one drop of that blood creates another. It's like a what we call, a viral type of asura. So there is not one thing that you destroy. There is this tremendous desire for propagation. That is Raktavija. The constant need to be acknowledged, the constant need to spread oneself, whether one has the substance or not. It's a bit like Rahu. Rahu does not have a body, it only has a head. So because of its head, there is a constant hunger. It's always wanted to eat something. It wants to consume things. But it does not have the capacity to digest those things because it doesn't have a body. So therefore, this type of a phenomenon, this thing, when it becomes an asuric force and causes havoc in the world, that is when there's an emanation of Kali, very fierce form that comes out of Parvati, and she destroys this asura by licking up the blood, that every drop of blood that comes out. So basically every single instance of its spreading is destroyed by this Kali. So when you think about it for a moment, if you step back and reflect on it, you will see that it represents all those kinds of things that have an exceptional ability to spread itself by hook or by crook. Whether there is any substance in it or not is irrelevant. It could be anything. It could be, for example, a disease that spreads itself. It could be an ideology that causes difficulties to people, but it keeps spreading itself virulently. Okay. It could be even a spiritual organization. There are many things. This property, this whole idea that by hook or crook I just have to spread myself, that itself is fundamentally poisonous. That is Rahu inflicted mindset, and that eventually leads to problems and adharma, because anything without a control, without a limit, is poison. And this is what somebody of the caliber of Swami Vivekananda had said. These type of entities, these type of asuric forces, these type of things that cause adharma is destroyed by the power of Chamundakaali. And she appears to us in the 7th Saptam Adhyaya, I think, yeah, Saptam, 7th chapter of the Durga Saptashati, which is taken from the Markandeya Purana. And we see that she destroys Chanda and Munda, and because of this, she becomes she's known to the world as Chamunda, as the destroyer of two asuric forces, Chanda, Munda, and then the destroyer of Raktavija. And these become so powerful episodes that even today, all upasakas of Devi, all devotees of the Divine Mother, we refer to Devi as Kali, as the destroyer of asuras like Chandamunda, destroyer of asuras like Raktavija. So that is one emergence of Kali. At the same time, there was also Kali who was very prominent in, scholars tell us that it was very prominent in Kashmir at one point, where there were 12 different forms of Kali who were worshipped, and it was a progression of from one form to the other until it reached the highest state of enlightenment. Same way, over time, over years, centuries, as more Shakta texts came into existence, especially in eastern India, towards Bengal, Assam, the area which is known as, so Tantra divides each geography, the whole of India, into different geographies, a different kind of localities. So the one towards eastern India is known as Vishnu Kranta. This is the area where Kali Upasana became most prominent. Primarily, the form that was most sought after. So Kali is one deity, but she herself projects into various multiple forms of Kali. And each of these forms have their own iconographies, their own mantras, their methods of worship. And these are important because these mantras, the methods of worship are not random. They are given by the greatest of upasakas who have realized the highest states through those forms. So that is why we use those mantras, we use those paddhatis of upasana. We don't create something new, because if you create something new, you do not know that whether it works or not. This important thing has to be kept in mind, that so far as upasana paddhatis are concerned, mantras are concerned, we stick to what the Shastras say. That is because that is time tested, that has stood the test of time for centuries and centuries and centuries. Unlike something, somebody creates something new which has no evidence anywhere, and then it is going to fall, because we don't know where it leads. We don't even know that if it really is what it calls itself, what it says itself to be. So that is why Shastra is like a protective umbrella. In fact, in a way, if the Shastras did not exist, you would not know who or what is Kali. The name itself would not be known. So one of the most important forms of Maa Kali that is worshipped in eastern India, very, very prominent, is the Dakshinakaali. Dakshina, the name has various connotations. One, Dakshina is the sort of the fees or the remuneration that you give to a priest or somebody who's doing a spiritual practice for you. Okay. But here it also means specifically, more specifically, Dakshina means southern direction. So this is the form of Kali that faces south, and she's so ferocious that even Yama, the lord of death, gets scared of her. In fact, there are beautiful songs of Shakta poets from Bengal that describe that, that speak to us that we should keep chanting the name of Kali. Why? That is because at the last moment when Yama and his all ganas come to take an individual, neither your friend, father, mother, wife, children, nobody can help you. Nobody except the name of Kali. And this interesting phenomenon has to be recognized, that a deity shows her greatest miracle by producing saints in a particular field, in a particular place. Until there are saints, saint means an ordinary individual transcending the limitations of the five chakras. So he has no further, there's no jealousy, there's no competitiveness, there is no anger, there is no disturbance in his mind. His mind is constantly in a state of absorption, samadhi, in the deity. That is a saint. That is a true saint. A saint has no enemies. A saint only recognizes the deity. That tremendous transformation is not easy to achieve. It can only be done, and it cannot be done only by human effort. It only comes through anugraha, or the blessings of a deity. So whenever you see that a deity has blessed a particular place, a community, or a sampradaya or something, you know that there will be saints produced in that, and that is the true test of a sampradaya. How do you know a sampradaya survives? There are many sampradayas that come only when it is able to produce saints over lifetimes, over generations after generations. Then and then only you know there are blessings of the deity. It is the will of the deity that is what is going to eventually work, not human desires or human will, not the human planning and manipulation that already goes on all the time in the mind. So Dakshina Kali is that form of Kali who faces south, who has the ability to stop Yama on its tracks, who is most ferocious. Uh, there is a certain peculiar inherent tendency towards extreme kind of violence that is inherent in Maa Kali. It may not be right at the beginning, but as the upasana goes deeper, so therefore, if a person has to actually succeed in the worship of Kali, he has to be absolutely sincere and authentic. Because, and also the ability to sustain the kind of karmic blows that she can give you, or any upasaka for that matter, so that the only aim being that the upasaka becomes more streamlined, becomes better. It's like, even why just Kali, even in the Mahabharata we see that the Upadesham of the Gita comes only when Arjuna is at a battlefield and he is at this wit's end and doesn't know what to do. It's completely confused. The first chapter of Gita talks about the Vishada, or the depression of Arjuna. Same way, one of the methods in which Maa Kali teaches people, and that's why she is known as the mother of Vedas. Here, Veda has two meanings. One is that one who has the Tantra Diksha, appropriate Tantra Diksha of the Kaulo Marga, because she is a deity who loves the Kaulo Marga. One can worship Maa Kali in sattvic manner also. The texts tell us that both are allowed, but one can worship her in Kaulo Marga also. That is obviously there in texts. So somebody who has entered into the path of Tantra sadhana, has been initiated into the worship, is technically in the tantras known as a Veda. But it also has another meaning. The simplest meaning: somebody who is strong enough to fight against his own innate tendencies. A Vira is somebody who's brave. The word means brave. Somebody who's ready to fight. But fight what? Fight the normal tendencies of human beings, human life, human existence, whatever the flaws that you have, to be able to take them by your, you know, it's like literally taking the bull by the horn and fighting. That itself, whoever is able to do, is a Vira. So therefore, a Veera is somebody who worships Kali or the Mahavidyas, is ready to take on the path that the ordinary mass of humanity is not going through. And in the process will have to undergo, there are various churns in his or her life that will come anyway. Specifically with respect to Maa Kali, this is a very constant phenomenon that happens to many upasakas. That is why she's also, again, as I mentioned, she's known as the mother of Vedas, because one has to be steady enough in the heart that whatever karmic blows come, so what she does is that something, a person maybe may have to experience certain kind of karmic reactions that would have lasted for 10 years or 15 years. she can combine all of that in a period of few years and make the Upasaka go through it, so that once you are out of that phase, you immediately have a shift and go to a higher state of consciousness. In fact, Sri Aurobindo very beautifully mentioned that if you allow Kali to intervene, then in a manner of perhaps months or decades, she can get things done that would have taken, in a matter of months. You would make the progress. She can get things done that would have otherwise taken perhaps decades or more time if it went normally. So that is one of the natures of Maa Kali, but it requires exceptional amount of devotion. It requires also an understanding of the nature of Kali mantras. So whenever an Upasaka is introduced to Kali sadhana, as I mentioned, 9 out of 10 times we find that the primary form that is worshipped is of Dakshinakaali. So because she is the one who stops Yama. Of Dakshinakaali also there are various dhyana mantras. There are also mantras, various types of mantras, whereas it starts with the Ekakshari Vija mantra that is normally given during Diksha, Upadesham. And then the krama changes and more complicated mantras come into picture. Uh, Apart from Dakshinakaali, we also have Bhadrakaali, who is a gentler form of the mother, but equally fierce and extremely protective. According to some of the texts, Bhadrakali is the form that the Divine Mother takes when when she went to destroy the Yagya of Daksha. That is the form that of Bhadrakali, along with Veerabhadra, who had destroyed uh, that Vedic Yagya that Daksha was performing, where Lord Shiva was not invited. Similarly, there is Chamunda Kali, we already spoke about. There is also Rakta Kali. These are various forms of Kali. And then there is Mahakali. Mahakali is like the transcendental form, the great Kali. But it is not so easy to worship Mahakali. Whenever these transcendental forms come into the picture, you have to understand that the Upasaka has to raise his levels, go beyond the snares of the six chakras, the lower chakras specifically. In fact, whole of human life revolves around the first three chakras, which is the Muladhara, Swadhisthana, and Manipura. These three chakras contain all the defects of existence. Whether it's jealousy, whether it's greed, whether it's lust, whether it's anything, your destiny is fundamentally written in these three chakras. Anybody who has gone beyond these three chakras slowly starts becoming more transcendental. Only when the Upasaka becomes transcendental can he actually connect to the transcendental form of cosmic form of Mahakali, which is Mahakali. We find Mahakali in the Durga Saptashati Pratham Charitra itself, where she is described with 10 arms, and there's a beautiful dhyana of Mahakali. She is also Vishnu Maya in the world. She helps in the destruction of two asuras, Madhu and Kaitava. And therefore we worship Mahakali, right? That's why the Durga Saptashati is so powerful, because we start with uh, the Pratham Adhyaya is like a offering to Mahakali, and then there is Mahalakshmi, and then there's Mahasaraswati. The word Maha is very important. It shows the transcendental quality of these deities, which is goes beyond the vital plane into the universal planes. But remember, any transcendental form can only be worshipped when the Upasaka himself has the ability to transcend his own limitations and go to that form. It's not so much about only having a mantra or a particular paddhati, but you must have that ability to go beyond. So Dakshinakali is like the first and the primary form that is worshipped. It starts obviously with the first mantram of Maa Kali, which is the Vija, and then it goes, and eventually there is a larger mantra which is there in the texts, which is considered almost like a Mahamantra of Kali. It has its own complexities and beauty. But remember, those who are devotees of Kali have to be absolutely sincere. What she does not tolerate, to one degree also, any kind of insincerity, or what we call in Hindi do numberi, inside the Upasaka. Pretending to be something while doing something else. These are the things she doesn't tolerate. And she will not think twice to punish the Upasaka if that is what is needed for them to progress faster. On the other hand, once she accepts somebody as his as her own, and this is like we see the biographies, you should read, if you're a worshipper of Kali, you should read the biography of Ramakrishna, because there is nobody who has come even close to him in Kali Upasana or will ever come close to him. That man was the greatest, most authentic saint that ever came in the last 200 years among the Shakta Sampradaya as a worshipper of Kali. You should see that, you should read the biography of Bhagavan Shri Ramakrishna and how he interacted with people, and the way he had a the way he interacted with Kali. I mean, there was this moment of crisis he had where he had this transformation. Same way, if you go a little earlier, maybe 17th century and all, you see poems by great Shakta saints of Bengal like Ram Prasad and others, which tell their great longing for Kali. I mean, they were also doing terrific upasana of Kali, by the way. Ram Prasad, some stories say that he used to spend nights sitting, nights immersed in the river, chanting the mantra of Kali till morning. And then he would also compose most beautiful songs of Maa Kali. This, as I said, is the true Lakshana. When a deity graces a particular land, particular place, then saints are produced of the deity. Until saints are produced, you do not have the greatest miracle of a Devata. Wherever the deity, whichever part of a land, a geography, specific geography, a saint, a deity blesses, there will always be saints that will come. Same rule applies for whether there are sampradayas. Whenever a sampradaya is to last, by the blessings of a deity, there will always be very high grade authentic saints. Saint, to be a saint is something you cannot fake it. Either it's inside you or it's not there. And there will be absolute, not a single trace of jealousy, anger, lust, competitiveness, any kind of fakery inside, any kind of non genuineness inside. A saint cannot lose because he doesn't own anything. That feeling itself is not there, that I possess something, because everything is possessed by the deity. That sense comes in. The whole world is possessed by Kali. Everything is possessed by Kali. The ones that you love is Kali. The ones that you hate is Kali. Every atom, every graha, every human being, every animal, everything is her. That sense, that absolute vision, that complete transformative power, that complete transformative change that happens in the heart of a person, that then you know that there is a genuine upasaka, a very, very high grade soul who has come, a high grade soul who has been blessed by the deity. So always read the biographies of saints, always read the biographies of great upasakas. That tells you how to behave, that tells you what are the flaws inside, that tells you how you need to reflect on how you can change yourself to be better. Unless you change yourself to be better, anybody who starts with the assumption that he's perfect is already fooling himself, is delusional, and every single delusion will be crushed by Kali eventually. So after Dakshinakaali, there is also another form of Maa Kali, which is very rare, which is Guhyakaali, which is the secret form of Kali. And in some tantric sampradayas, she is worshipped as the ultimate form, final form that comes. There are many various mantras of her, and it's extremely potent because there are 2-armed forms and 10-armed forms and 16-armed forms. Not just arms, there are various faces of this form of Kali. And eventually there is a particular manifestation of this form of Kali that has 54 heads. But this worship requires a certain degree of strength. Remember that Kali is only one. She manifests through all these forms. And then also we have, for example, in Bengal, there was a famous saintly man who by a divine intuition figured the existence of what is known as the Adhyakalli, a form of vigraha that came to him, and then the vigraha was given off into the river because it was instructed that it should not be kept at home and worshipped, and so he gave it off into the Ganges. Uh, Adhakali Stotram is a very powerful stuti you can read on the internet, and it's extremely beneficial. The word Adhyakali also comes to us from the Mahanirvan Tantra, but very interestingly, and I was discussing with a scholarly Tantric Upasaka very recently, a friend and Upasaka, and he also pointed out very interestingly that the term Adya is always used as a Visheshana, as an adjective. Adya is not one deity. Adya doesn't have a form. Adya is typically Nirakar. You cannot have a form of Adhyakali. Adhyakali is Nirakara. because human mind is incomplete, incapable of comprehending what is truly the source. Adya Kali basically means the source from which everything comes in. It can also be the form of Adya, can also represent Durga and other deities, etc. Uh, it's not that simple to worship Adya Kali, but it's used more in the sense of an adjective of Kali here, not so much as a specific swarupa of Kali, like Dakshinakaali, like Bhadrakaali, like Raktakali, like Chamundakaali. Adya is used as a Visheshana of Kali in the text, and this is very interesting. So all forms, all these forms, Dakshina, etc., are also Adya Kali. Adya Kali is the one that comes to us. In fact, this term is more commonly used in the Mahanirvan Tantra, which comes to us about the 17th century around, or the 18th century. Before that, there are much older tantras of Kali which go into details of Dakshina and the other forms. So that is why the Kali sampradayas, where tantric sampradayas are the authentic places where knowledge is disseminated about Maa Kali, or the Upasana of Kali is taught, it is always starts with the Ekakshari Bija of Kali. Until you have mastered the Ekakshari Bija, first just japa, then along with that puja of the Ekakshari Bija, how to do that, etc. The ways in which Purushcharana of the Ekakshari has to be done, only then one goes into the next stages. Because it's one thing to say that I like Kali, it's another thing to have that steadiness inside. Otherwise, there is also the chance, as I mentioned in one of my previous videos, that various types of people with their own uh, inner drama create various forms of Kali, and they propagate that which actually doesn't have a basis either in the Shastras, or which doesn't actually cause any benefit to people in the long run. So that is why we follow the Shastras, specifically when it comes to Devata Upasana, because the Shastras are divinely ordained, sanctioned. In fact, the propagation of Adya Kali, of propagation of Dakshina Kali specifically, comes to us from a very interesting story of Krishnananda Agambakish, who in whose case he was a great tantric scholar and master. Maa Kali specifically instructed him in a certain series of uh, very divine events, that this is the form Swarupa of Kali that has to be made popular. And we know that this was not a hallucination of his mind, because today, almost 500-600 years later, that is by default the most worshipped form of Kali. And by worshipping that form, that specific form of Dakshina Kali, there are hundreds of people who have benefited. There are great saints and siddhas who have come. In fact, most of the temples around in eastern India will have some or the other form of either there are different dhyanas. Based on that, the forms are created, different dhyanas, some of the other form of Dakshina Kali that is there. And Dakshina Kali Paddhati, mantra, krama, puja, etc., how to do, it's well established format. By following that well established route, people go into higher states of Kali Upasana. So eventually, it's an app for people, for those kinds of souls who have that absolute devotion to Maa Kali, who have that steadiness that comes from Shiva and Bhairava, who have the capacity to follow the Shastras. They are meant to go higher in Kali Upasana, and it's a joy and a delight, and it cannot be explained properly in words beyond a point. It has to be experienced, what happens exactly when one goes more in depth into Kali Upasana, and how beautifully she manifests in a person's life, and most importantly, how quickly she can make you progress. There is no deity that gives as quick progress as Kali, provided one has the stamina and one has the strength in the heart to sustain that. You cannot back out, you cannot wilt. It is, remember that she is the mother of the Veeras, and Veera is both one who has the appropriate diksha, but also one who has the guna of a Veera, the quality, the ability, the Kshatriya bhava of a Veera, that no, you are going to fight against your own tendencies, reflect on your own errors, and transcend them. And that is when she will take you up, even in a fraction of a second. She can take a person from here to this level, provided one is ready to surrender to her and follow the right method of Kali Upasana. I hope this is helpful to people who have often asked me to speak on Maa Kali, though I've spoken earlier and I'm speaking now. In fact, Kali is such a beautiful form. Maa Kali is like the dark form of Tripur Sundari. There is Kali, there is Tripur Sundari, and there is Tara. These are the three ultimate Mahavidyas who can take you to the highest stages of enlightenment, absolute, perfected, transformative enlightenment. And there is no end to how much one can speak on them. One can speak from the Shastras, one can speak from experience, but eventually whatever you speak is still going to be less than what they truly are. So with that, I'll end it here. Jai Maa Kamakhya, Jai Matara, Jai Bhairava Baba.